Hey Kipsters, you know what time it is. So today I'm gonna go through your Tuesday reading lesson. This is from May the 12th when we went over First Space Encyclopedia again. So just like always, you should put your name first, just like me. Make sure that your email is checked up here like always. Make sure your name's correct. Make sure you got the correct teacher. Respond to the journal prompt below. Let's see what it says. Today's text says the atmosphere on Venus would crush you in an instant because it is so heavy. What is the heaviest thing you have ever carried? Oh my goodness, I'm trying to think about that. What is the heaviest thing I've ever carried? I'm going to say my little cousin. He weighs about 87 pounds. He's a heavy guy. Goodness, I can't type, excuse me. Let's go ahead and go on to the next part where we read for gist. Now, just like when we went through the lesson yesterday, it talked about today we're going to go back to reading First Space Encyclopedia. Before we get started actually reading, though, we're going to go over some vocabulary words. So I very much hope that you went over those vocabulary words yesterday when you were doing your reading lesson. Vocabulary words to know. The first one is mass. A mass is a large amount. It shows us a picture here of a lot of pizzas. That's a mass amount of pizzas, a large amount. The next word is dense. Dense is something that's thick and hard to see through or penetrate. So something that's dense means that it's hard to see through, hard to get through. It's dense. The next word is penetrate. To penetrate means to go into or through something. So if I took a piece of paper and I took a pencil and I pushed the pencil through the piece of paper, through the hole, and made a hole in it, I would be penetrating the piece of paper. The last vocabulary word is lava, and lava, as a lot of us know, is hot or melted rock that comes from or erupts from a volcano. Let's go ahead and get into our reading. So, we're going to read pages 58 to 59 together. It says we stop to gist along the way. That just means we talk about what the text or the page is mostly about. I'm not going to go back into the text and read it again like I did in the first video. I'm just going to go back if I need to look in my text to find my answer. So I had multiple people send me a message and they said, Mr. Dudley, I got number 1 wrong, but I got the right answer. It says in the text that Venus is the brightest object in the night sky, and wouldn't you know, I put that answer question in there, excuse me, to trick you, because actually it says, in fact, after the moon, Venus is the brightest object in our night sky. So if I came and I was running in a race and I went and told my mom that I came after the first person, would I really have won the race? Well, no. That means that I got second place. Well, in the text it says, after the moon, Venus is the brightest object in our night sky. So if Venus is after the moon, what's the brightest object? The brightest object is the moon. That was a trick question. You had to read it carefully to get that one right. If you did, good job. If you didn't, next time make sure you go back and read more carefully. What is the topic of page 58? I got a lot of messages about this too. You should have just put Venus. You could have wrote it in a complete sentence. But that's fine if you did that. You didn't technically get it wrong. So if the computer told you got it wrong, the computer made a mistake and that's okay. But the topic of page 58 is Venus. Now, what is the main idea of page 58? The main idea of page 58 is that Venus is not somewhere we would want to visit because it has a very dense atmosphere. And there are other reasons too, but for me to be able to get a cohesive, which means a short answer, I'm going to leave it just like that. The main idea is that Venus is not somewhere we would want to visit. That's what it talks about in here. It talks about the massive clouds, which makes the atmosphere dense here. And then it shows us why we call it the morning star, which is telling us that it's not somewhere that we would technically want to visit, although it is kind of cool. So on the next page, Miss Daniels gives us an exemplar, and the exemplar is telling us what the topic and main idea of that page is. So the topic is Venus, also known as the morning star. That page is mostly about Venus being the brightest planet, and it has a harsh atmosphere. So again, I'm not going to go back and watch the video. You should have already watched the video when you did the lesson. I'm not going to reread page 59 because we should have already read it. I will go back in the text to find answers if I need to, though. Number 4, how many Earth days does it take for Venus to spin on its axis one time? If this was me taking this quiz or this lesson, excuse me, the first thing I would do anytime I'm asked a question about numbers I would go back in the text and find every single number on that page. So let's see, page 59. Let's go look for numbers 1989 and 1992. That is not going to tell me how long it takes for Venus to spin, so I'll skip that. The surface temperature, how hot Venus is not going to tell me how long it takes to spin on its axis, so I'm going to skip those numbers. These are page numbers. I'm going to skip those. Oh, it says 243 here. Let's read that. It takes 243 Earth days to spin just once. Well, there is our answer. It's not 365, it's not 64, it's not 450, but it's 243, as it says right here in the text. What is the topic of page 59? Again, the topic of page 59 is Venus. That is what we are talking about. The main idea of page 59 is telling us what is on the surface of Venus, excuse me. So the main idea of page 59 is the surface of Venus is covered in mountains, hills, volcanoes, and etc. Etc. means etc. That's what etc. means. That means that there are other things that I could go on to list, but that I just am not going to list. That means there's more things. So let's see if we got our main idea, excuse me, our topic and our main idea right. On the next page, the topic of page 59 is Venus, also known as the morning star. And the most important idea is that the planet spins slowly and has high mountains, volcanoes, and valleys. Now we have TDQs. We have our text up here. We can go back if we need to. Page 58 is here. Page 59 is here and here. So it says number 7, you wouldn't want to visit Venus because A, your remains would be fried to a crisp. B, the atmosphere is very dense. C, the planet is covered in acid clouds. Or D, all of the above. I would not necessarily need to go back in the text again if I read that already, but for good measure, I will go back in the text, and every single detail that I read in that question is in this first paragraph, the morning star. Since they're all three in there, that tells me that my answer has to be all of the above, because all three of those answers are good answers. All three of those answers are reasons why I would not want to visit Venus. Let's go to number 8. Why does the sun set in the east on Venus? Well, I would want to go where it's telling me where Venus is spinning, and it tells me Venus is spinning in the caption at the bottom of page 59. The caption says Venus spins in the opposite direction from Earth. So the sun rises in the west and sets in the east. The question wants me to know why the sun sets in the east. Venus is the only planet on an orbit. It does not say that in the text. Venus is the furthest planet from the sun. It does not say that in the text. Venus spins in an opposite direction than Earth. It says that word for word in the text, so that's probably a good answer. And then Venus is covered in acid clouds. Venus being covered in acid clouds does not tell me why the sun sets in the east and not the west. Venus spins in the opposite direction of Earth, and that is why I know the sun sets in the east on Venus and not in the west. Then we'll go to our next page. Hopefully my internet will load. And all this video does on the last slide is tell me the important key ideas from what we read today from pages 58 and 59. You should have watched that video. If you didn't, please go back and watch it. Those are the important things from the lesson that you should have remembered from reading those 2 pages. So what was the most interesting thing that you learned today? I found it interesting that Matt Mons is named after an Egyptian goddess. I did not know that before I read this text, and I think that that is interesting. So, right here at the bottom, if it says send me a copy of my responses, that is, you can click yes, you just click it if you want that. If not, you don't click it. That's just gonna send you pretty much a copy of your completed lesson where you could go back and look at it and compare. I recommend that you receive a copy of your responses, which means you would just click here. I recommend means you don't have to, but it would be nice if you had those. You could go back to review those, but you do not have to. So if you're done reviewing this video and reviewing your lesson, I hope that you have a great rest of your week. I miss you guys. I love you, and have a good rest of your week. See you Thursday.